Do you think that Tom Brady had a good season this year?
Okay, I haven't seen his stat line. I'm going to say they went 11-5. They they beat the Chiefs, but I'd say average to below average, just right off the top of my head. But
so you think that Tom Brady would have helped get the Vikings into the playoffs?
It depends who's the head coach.
Just swap Brady for Cousins.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't.
I think a lot of people would, and especially the people that are making the Cousins argument.
Okay,
here are their stat lines this year, and I get it. Stats aren't a lot. Brady fumbled a lot less than Cousins. I'll say this, but just not including the fumbles. Stats between Brady and Cousins. Brady, 4,300 yards, or 4,355. Cousins, 2 less than 4,300 yards. Completion percentage. Cousins, 70. Brady, 65. Passer ratings. Cousins, 99.7. Brady, 97.7. Touchdowns to interceptions. Brady, 29-11. Cousins, 30-10. Essentially the same quarterback this year, other than the fumbles and some of the situational awareness, stat-wise. And you know what? Matt Ryan, the Falcons had a terrible season. They went 7-9. The Falcons had a terrible season. Matt Ryan almost threw for 5,000 yards, had 35 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Nobody's blaming Matt Ryan. We have the same issues as the Falcons. Defensive injuries. Decimated by injuries. Everson Griffin went insane in the beginning of the year.
You can't even say that it was the money reason because Matt Ryan got a fat contract.
Matt Ryan is one of the top 6 quarterbacks in the league, I believe.
I believe that all top 6 quarterbacks did not make the
playoffs.
Because now the new shift in the NFL is kind of switching to rookie quarterbacks and using their short contract to build the team. But anyway, the point. You got any more points on Cousins?
No, I mean, it's just you got to watch football to understand. I've watched Kirk Cousins. If you give him an offensive line, Blake Palmer commented on Facebook, an offensive line this season, a good one, would have changed the entire season.
Yeah, it would have.
Because we might have won 2 or 3 more games. That game against the Packers, we might have won. We should have won anyways. But we might have gone 11-5 this year. Beaten the Bears once. Won the division. I don't.
Who knows?
I'm just saying, Kirk Cousins was not the main issue. And again, I've said it, he didn't play up to his expectations at all. I don't think he played well compared to what I am used to, even. I think there was a lot of situations that he could have done a lot better. But I don't think that blaming Cousins is what you need to be doing.
Well, and I like to think, somebody said this on Twitter a while ago, and I like to agree with it. Kirk Cousins is going to fit nicely now that Joe Mauer's gone. Okay, who's the guy that makes all the money that we're going to shift all of our blame towards when things go wrong? And Joe Mauer took a lot of heat from Twins fans because the team was bad. And it's there's a lot more going on than Joe Mauer, why this team is bad. And I think there's a lot more going on than Kirk Cousins, why this team missed the playoffs, which we've talked about already. But here's my general consensus. Cousins, his contract. He didn't have a terrible season, like you said. His stats were pretty good. But I don't think he lived up to his contract this year and you bring up his numbers, which actually, when you look at it, were some of his career highs. When you think about his stat line this season, he had his best completion percentage this season. He threw the most in his career with 606 passing attempts. Threw for basically 4,300 yards, which wasn't his career best, but was still would be second in his career. 30 touchdowns, which is a career high for him. So statistically, you can look and say Cousins had a pretty solid season. And I think that part of it, yes. But when you look at the Buffalo game, and it's like you said, the fumbles, I think that's what people get hung up on. I think Everson Griffin's situation kind of threw the team through a loop, and I think you can say that. But the 2 plays that stick out to me the most in that Buffalo game were Kirk Cousins fumbling the ball twice deep in your own territory, which set up, I don't care who you're playing. In the NFL, you give a team those opportunities twice in a row when you don't show up to begin with, that puts your team in a bad situation. And I think the game that was the biggest turning point in the season, and I think one play was the biggest turning point that completely shifted our team from on the offensive to trying to just back into the playoffs. Adam Thielen's fumble
against New
against New Orleans.
That's exactly what came to my head when you started saying that sentence.
Because it completely shifted because the Vikings
we were
beating
beating
the Saints we were moving the ball. We were already ahead. We were going to score another touchdown.
Our defense was
Doing
intercepting
well.
Drew Brees.
Exactly.
Well.
We were playing well. It was Sunday Night Football. The lights were bright. Cousins was proving the people wrong, and then like that, it was gone. That Thielen fumble
returned. Was the fumble returned for a touchdown?
No, but they flipped field.
They flipped field. The Saints ended up scoring either a field goal or a touchdown, and then Cousins throws an interception return for a touchdown because Diggs just stops running.
I'm putting blame on both of them.
Yeah,
but still,
the one beforehand is the one that started it though.
That just didn't flip the game. You lose that game, and all of a sudden you get beat by the Saints. You got beat by the Rams, and the Eagles didn't look that good at the time. So you felt like you didn't really have a win, and this was probably the biggest game Kirk Cousins had played in a Vikings uniform. And the first part was good, but he fell apart in that second half, and you're kind of and I think that's when the fans started to turn. The fan base is really divided on Cousins. There's a lot of people who are saying, guys, he's putting up numbers that we wish quarterbacks would put up, and there's other guys saying he's overpaid. And when you look at that, that's really when that split started to happen, is that game. But then after that, Chicago at Soldier Field, Kirk Cousins was a no-show. At New England, Kirk Cousins was an absolute no-show. At Seattle, that was awful. And again, D. Filippo deserves part of the blame, yes. But Cousins, these games, Cousins was a no-show. Chicago, the last game of the season, with Stefanski as the OC. Absolute no-show. And I think that's the problem. It's not just the fact...
Giving Stefanski too much credit for coming into a situation where his first game that he calls is against the terrible Dolphins.
No, I'm just saying it wasn't D. Filippo. I'm saying it wasn't D. Filippo.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I just think there are just some of these games, and I understand the offensive line isn't going well for him. The OC situation was not great. But if you're Kirk Cousins, and this isn't so much to people defending Kirk Cousins, it's to Kirk Cousins himself. He talked about how he's an underdog, how he's earned this contract. He deserves $84 million guaranteed. He wanted to show people he was the man. Well, you kind of have to try and overcome some of these situations in some of these games. If he even just wins one of these games, you might have thought about it in a different way. But the Vikings only had one win against a team with a winning record last year, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles. And at the time, they were bad. They didn't start to turn things around until Nick Foles took back over again. So my biggest thing is, I understand the things weren't in your favor, but when we put you in this, we got you because we thought you could win these games in spite of some of our flaws. When the defense doesn't play well, and when kind of things go wrong, you're the quarterback that can throw us back into games, and he did against Green Bay. He kept us in the game against Los Angeles. I understand that. That's just I guess my biggest thing is I don't trust him completely, but to finish, he can turn it around. The next question I guess would be is, do you have faith in him going forward? I would say I'm not saying sell Cousins. He can still turn it around, but he does need to do it very quick at the beginning of next season. Otherwise, if he has a bad start to the season, then everybody looks at Zimmer and Spielman, who are both in the last year of their contracts, and it could get ugly at that point.
This is why Minnesota never goes anywhere in anything, sports-wise, is because we go out and make an aggressive move. It doesn't pay off right away. For many factors go into this, not just Cousins. The team is not the same team. Like we talked about, the defense gets decimated with injuries. And it wasn't like the defense statistically was playing terrible. It was just like when you needed a stop, they didn't get it.
They were the best.
The game against the Bears.
They were the best third down. They had the best third down percentage in the league this year.
The game against the Bears, I was like, why are we just letting them run all over? Yeah, we only gave up 20 points a game, but it was like, what?
Wait, are we talking about the time at Soldier Field?
No, I'm talking about any game.
Well, you said against the Bears, so I guess I'm just...
They made the third down stops when it didn't matter, I felt like. I was watching it, and...
I guess my disagreement would be the Packers game, which they did get stops at the end of the game to give Daniel Carlson 2 attempts to win the game, and then to give Kirk Cousins the opportunity to come back and tie the game. And I would say late in the game against Los Angeles, they were able to give Kirk Cousins the chance to have a comeback drive. But again,
there's a lot of factors that go into it, and Minnesota fans will get upset that the team just, it fell apart this year. The defense got injured. the offensive line was terrible, and everybody looks at one thing and they say, well, he's not working, sell him, draft, get Teddy back, draft a new quarterback, and start over. And it's not at all the way that you should be going about it. If this happens again next year, then I think there's, obviously realistic talk that it's not working. Cousins didn't work. It was a failure. Cousins is not the guy. But it was 1 year. There was things that went wrong outside of Cousins. Obviously, I'm not saying, but with the fumbles, I'm not saying Cousins is not to blame at all for the fumbles because he's not situationally aware enough. But with a better offensive line, maybe they don't.
You take those out.
They don't get to his hand fast enough for that to be quite a problem.